Hey everyone! What If Fan here, bringing you another exciting part of What If Fusion Deck User in a different Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. You can find the fanfic title and the original author's name on my Patreon page. Make sure to check it out and show them some love. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. Alright, let's jump into it. Chapter 481, Play. My turn. UCI drew his next card. Their speed counters were still even, neither had taken any damage yet. When he saw the card in his hand, UCI's eyes tightened with quiet determination. He held it out and placed it onto his duel disk. When my opponent controls a monster and I control none, I can special summon this card as a level 4 monster. Level Warrior. A red armored fighter, styled like a Sentai hero, leapt onto UCI's field. A glowing star pulsed on his helmet, and a holographic star projection appeared above him. Level Warrior, Level 3/Light/Warrior/ATK 300/Def 600. Level Warrior, Level 3/4. Next, I normal summon Bree Synchron. A green mechanical warrior with a turbine-like backpack materialized beside Level Warrior, sparks whirring across his arms. Bree Synchron, Level 4/Earth/Machine/Tuner/ATK 1500. I tune my Level 4 Level Warrior with my Level 4 Bree Synchron. He raised his arm as golden rings of light encircled the field. The single ray that cuts through the starry sky let the pulse of the soul echo across the world. Synchro Summon. Stardust Dragon. Shine once more. Light flooded the dark track. Bursting from it, a radiant white dragon soared skyward, trailing a shower of stars, its body gleaming even brighter than before. Stardust Spark Dragon, Level 8/Light/Dragon/ATK 2500. When Bree Synchron is used as Synchro material, the Synchro monster gains 600 ATK until the end of this turn, but its effects are negated. ATK, 2500-3100. Battle. Stardust Spark Dragon, Attack Infernity Doom Archfiend. Stardust Spark Dragon spun in midair and dove, becoming a golden spiral of light that slammed through the Archfiend. Kalen didn't activate a single card, he had nothing left in his hand. With a blast of radiance, Stardust Dragon's attack pierced through the dark flames, knocking Kalen's dual runner backward and hurling him into the violet fire surrounding the field. The flames licked at his body, but Kalen only laughed wildly. Ha 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 ha. Yes. That's it. That's what I've been waiting for. UCI. You struck first, beautifully done. Ha ha ha. Kalen LP. 4,000-3,100. UCI frowned, then set a card. I set one card face down and end my turn. Kalen's turn. My turn. Drawl. Kalen looked at his card, then smiled darkly. Tough luck for you, UCI. I activate the continuous spell, Infernity Launcher. A massive cannon appeared on Kalen's dual runner, its barrel pointed at him. As long as this card remains on the field, once per turn, I can send one Infernity monster from my hand to the graveyard. Discarding a monster? Crow muttered. Jack nodded grimly. It makes sense. The Infernity deck's entire strategy revolves around having no cards in hand. That spell lets him dump his hand, and power up his monster's effects to the limit. Kalen's grin widened. Oh, Jack, it's not just that. Infernity Launcher has another effect. When I have no cards in my hand, I can send it to the graveyard to special summon up to 2 Infernity monsters from my graveyard. What? Carly gasped. That's incredible. Crow shouted. Even Monster Reborn can only revive one monster, Jack muttered. That card's broken. Kalen thrust his hand forward. I send Infernity Launcher to the graveyard. I special summon Infernity Sage and Infernity Doom Archfiend. Both monsters burst from twin pillars of crimson flame beside him. I activate Infernity Doom Archfiend's effect. I target Stardust Dragon, its effect is negated. Then I activate Stardust's ability. UCI shot back. Once per turn, I can target one face-up card I control. It can't be destroyed by battle or card effects this turn. This effect can also activate during your opponent's turn. Then I'll chain my trap card. Kalen laughed, flipping a card open. Infernity Suppression. When I control an Infernity monster and my opponent activates a monster effect, negate it. And then, you take damage equal to that monster's level times 100. Carly gasped. That's the card he set last turn. Jack clenched his fists. Exactly. If UCI Stardust can't activate, he can't protect himself. But UCI didn't panic. Trap activate, damage polarizer. What? Kalen's eyes widened. When an effect would inflict damage, damage polarizer negates and destroys that effect, and then both players draw one card. A radiant energy barrier appeared in front of Stardust Spark Dragon, splitting the incoming flames apart and scattering them into sparks. Beautiful. Crow cheered. Classic UCI, Jack said, nodding. Carly blinked. Wait, what's so special about that card? Jack explained quickly. UCI's realized that Kalen's Infernity deck is strongest when he has no cards in hand. Damage polarizer not only blocks the damage, it forces both players to draw a card, ruining Kalen's setup. Kalen growled as his trap fizzled out. TCH. Both duelists drew. Kalen looked at his new card. He smirked faintly. Interesting. UCI glanced at his own draw and exhaled. Good. Kalen smirked again. If I can't win through effects, then I'll win through battle. I tune my level 2 Infernity Sage with my level 6 Infernity Doom Archfiend. The fiend's bodies burst into black stars. Lightning ripped through the field, and countless eyes opened within the darkness. When the curtain of darkness falls, the eyes of the underworld awaken. Synchro summon. Rise, 100-Eyes Dragon. His dark signer mark flared crimson as the twisted dragon with eyes covering every inch of its body emerged, circling the track alongside his D-wheel. 100-Eyes Dragon, level 8/dark/dragon/ATK 3000/def 2500. 3000 attack points? Crow exclaimed. Jack narrowed his eyes. Same as Red Dragon Archfiend. That's his ace monster. Kalen sneered. Don't blink, UCI. Witness the power I gain for revenge. 100-Eyes Dragon's effect. This card gains the effects of all dark monsters in my graveyard. What? UCI gasped. Everyone watching went silent in shock. That's insane. All of them? Shinji's jaw dropped. Unbelievable. If it can copy every dark monster's power, then Mr. Kalen's unstoppable, he'll become the one god himself. Even Hikaru felt his heart skip. 100-Eyes Dragon, it really kept its original anime effect. There's no dark synchro energy in this world, and yet it appeared exactly as in the original battle, one of the strongest effects ever printed. Kalen raised a hand. I'll make you taste despair, UCI. Feel fear itself, and live forever in it, traitor. Behind his visor, UCI's expression stayed unreadable. You're right, 100-Eyes Dragon's ability is terrifying. But the effects of your Infernity monsters only work when your hand is empty. That means the only one it can copy right now is Infernity Doom Archfiend's effect. He pointed forward. And Stardust Spark Dragon already activated its ability, so it can't be destroyed by battle or card effects this turn. Kalen barked a laugh. Maybe not destroyed, but you'll still take battle damage. Attack, 100-Eyes Dragon. UCI flipped his set card. Trap activate, Scrap Iron Scarecrow. When you declare an attack, that attack is negated. This card doesn't go to the graveyard, it's reset face down. A metal scarecrow appeared before UCI's runner, shielding him with its rusted arms and deflecting the Dark Dragon's strike. Nice! As long as he's got Scrap Iron Scarecrow, even 100-Eyes Dragon can't touch him. Crow cheered. Even in a moment this dangerous, he's still building tactics through card combos. Amazing! Crow exclaimed. Ha! You've done well, UCI, Kalen said, smirking darkly, but you're still too naive. Did you think I'd forget about Scrap Iron Scarecrow? Infernity du March Fiend's effect, when it's used as synchro material for a dark synchro monster, that monster can attack up to twice during the battle phase. He pointed toward UCI's dragon. 100 Eyes Dragon, attack again. The countless eyes across the fiendish dragon's body snapped open one by one. A violet aura flared around it as it lunged, slamming its claw into Stardust Spark Dragon. Erg! UCI cried out as the impact sent his dual runner crashing into the wall of purple fire. The infernal flames engulfed him, his jacket and the runner's rear frame briefly catching fire. Ha 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 ha! Ha ha ha! Kalen laughed wildly. But the laughter froze. UCI twisted his throttle, the D-wheel's tires sparking as he raced along the wall itself, bursting free from the flames in a blazing spin before landing back on the track. Kalen's grin fell into stunned silence. UCI, this guy. UCI LP, 3500. TCH. How boring. That didn't satisfy me at all. I end my turn. UCI's turn. My turn. UCI roared, accelerating through the violet fire once more, his runner surging alongside Kalen's. Sparks scattered in the wake of his wheels as he drew his next card. Kalen. Ever since you died, I've been asking myself what went wrong with our world. Huh? I've met so many people in Satellite, seen so much pain and struggle. Jack and I even turned against each other for a time. I met duelists from another dimension, and from them I learned how broken our world really is. If things had been even a little better, maybe what happened to you would never have happened. What are you talking about, UCI? Kalen frowned. He could feel that the man before him was no longer the same friend he once knew. The UCI standing there was evolving into someone he couldn't predict, someone he couldn't understand. I want to build a world, UCI said quietly, where everyone can truly understand one another, a world where people can connect, no matter who they are. Kalen's eyes widened. You mean, that's what made you a signer? No. UCI shook his head. I became one because I chose to keep fighting. He raised his arm. I activate Stardust Spark Dragon's effect. Once per turn, I can target one face-up card I control. It can't be destroyed by battle or card effects this turn. Then I play the quick play spell, Cosmic Flare. Cosmic Flare. Crow shouted. It targets one Stardust Synchro monster I control, UCI explained. When that monster battles this turn, at the start of the damage steps, its opponent's monster is shuffled back into the deck. Oh. So that lets him beat a stronger monster without destroying it. Crow realized, cheering. Damn it. Come on, Mr. Kalen. Shinji yelled from the crowd. Battle. UCI called out. Stardust Spark Dragon, attack 100 Ice Dragon. Kalen smirked. I'll admit it, UCI, you've impressed me. But that's still not enough. Trap activate, yellow alert. When an opponent's monster declares an attack, I special summon one monster from my hand. While it's face up on the field, you can't target other monsters for attacks. That monster returns to my hand at the end of the battle phase. I special summon Infernity Destroyer. A blazing fiend appeared beside the dragon, flames crackling around its fists. Infernity Destroyer, level 6/dark/fiend/ATK 2300/def 1000. Carly gasped. He special summoned a monster from his hand. To make his hand count 0 again. Smart, UCI admitted quietly. He lowered his hand. Attack cancelled. I end my battle phase. I see, trying to let my monster return to my hand so 100 Eyes Dragon can't copy its effect, huh? Kalen sneered. Pathetic. You play it safe, and you call yourself a savior? Ha ha ha. You can't even save yourself. UCI's pupils narrowed. He remembered, years ago, during one of their old gang battles, someone had pushed him off a building. He'd been falling, until Kalen had risked his own life to grab him. UCI had already accepted dying that day, but Kalen had refused to let go, shouting that they were comrades. Now, UCI stayed silent as Kalen drew his next card. Kalen's turn. My turn. Drawl. Kalen's laughter grew harsher. Ha ha ha. Looks like it's all over, UCI. I activate the continuous spell, Wave Motion Inferno. As long as I have no cards in hand, all my face-up Infernity monsters gain 400 ATK and DF. But that's not the important part. I can also send this card from the field to the graveyard, and then send all cards in my hand to the graveyard. Everyone watching went wide-eyed. They all realized at once what that meant. The countless eyes across 100 Eyes Dragon began to glow with a sinister violet light. Battle time, UCI ha 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 ha. Kalen shouted, pointing forward. 100 Eyes Dragon, attack Stardust Spark Dragon. UCI's voice stayed firm. Then I activate Stardust Spark Dragon's effect. Once per turn, I can protect one face-up card I control. It can't be destroyed by battle or card effects this turn. Kalen only grinned wider. Go ahead, doesn't matter. Activate the effect 100 Eyes Dragon gained from Infernity Beast. When this card attacks, your opponent can't activate any spells or traps. The dragon's eyes flared like a storm of purple suns. Stardust Spark Dragon was caught in its burning gaze, its white armor smoking under the darkness. UCI LP, 3500 2500. Jack clenched his fists. Why'd he lose 1000 life points? Kalen laughed maniacally. Because 100 Eyes Dragon also inherited Infernity Doom Archfiend's power. When my hand is empty, any battle damage it deals is doubled. Ha 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 ha. UCI's dual runner swerved violently, nearly spinning out. What's wrong, UCI? Already losing control? Don't disappoint me. Remember, a Dark Synchro made with Infernity Doom Archfiend can attack twice per turn. Now go, 100 Eyes Dragon. Tear him apart. The dragon dove again, its claws raking across Stardust Spark Dragon. The impact hurled UCI across the track like a top, crashing him into the flaming barrier. UCI LP, 2500 1500. Ha 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 ha. And by the way, thanks to Infernity Guardian's effect, as long as my hand is empty, my monster can't be destroyed by battle or card effects. Kalen's assault pressed on relentlessly, his voice cracking with manic satisfaction. But when UCI's dual runner burst out from the flames again, charred, but still racing forward, Kalen's smirk faltered. Those eyes beneath the visor, that unyielding glare shocked him. End my turn, Kalen muttered. UCI's turn. My turn, draw. His jacket was torn, purple fire still licking along his arm. His whole body trembled from the shock, but his eyes stayed sharp. From my graveyard, I banish Rush Warrior. UCI announced. Then I target one Synchron monster in my graveyard and add it to my hand. I return Junk Synchron. He slipped the card into his hand, then raised another. I play the spell card, Cards of Consonance. I draw 2 cards, then discard one. He drew swiftly, then sent Junk Synchron back to the graveyard. His visor glinted. I see it, the path is open. I activate the continuous trap, Lucky Punch. Whenever my monster inflicts battle damage, I draw 1 card. If the card I draw is a trap, this card is destroyed, and I can immediately activate that trap. Kalen narrowed his eyes. But you'll need to deal damage first. UCI raised another card. Then I normal summon, Top Runner. A sleek, red-plated runner droid burst onto the track. Top Runner level 4/win/machine/ATK 1100. While Top Runner is on my field, all my Synchro monsters gain 600 ATK. Stardust Spark Dragon ATK 2500 3100. 3100, more than 100 Eyes Dragon. Jack shouted. Nice work, UCI. Crow cheered. Battle. UCI commanded. Stardust Spark Dragon, attack 100 Ice Dragon. Shining Impact. A burst of gold light engulfed the purple dragon. Kalen LP, 3,100 3000. Kalen laughed through the shock. Ha, thanks to Infernity Guardian, 100 Ice Dragon isn't destroyed by battle. UCI pointed ahead. Then Lucky Punch activates. I draw one card. He drew, eyes widening. Perfect. Since the drawn card was a trap, Lucky Punch is destroyed, and I activate that trap immediately, Miracle Locus. I target one face-up monster I control, you draw one card until the end of this turn, that monster gains 1000 ATK and can attack twice. Crow's eyes widened. That card. It's been years since I've seen it. Kalen snorted, drawing one card from his deck. Ha! You made me draw, now I've got a card in my hand. UCI thrust his hand forward. Even so, Stardust Spark Dragon, attack again. Stardust Spark Dragon cut through the storm, riding the wind and starlight as it plunged downward, piercing straight through 100 Ice Dragon. Kalen LP, 3,1900. 100 Ice Dragon's effect activates. Kalen snapped, his grin twisting. When this card's destroyed and sent to the graveyard, I can add one card from my deck to my hand. Crow's jaw dropped. He still gets to search? That's insane. I'll add Earthbound Geoglyph to my hand, Kalen declared. UCI's visor glinted. Top Runner, attack directly. His voice cracked into a shout that echoed over the roar of the engines. Kalen, remember who you are. Remember our bond. Bond? Kalen's eyes widened, then filled with fury. My only bond is with dueling itself. I'll never believe your words, traitor. He slammed a card into his duel disc. I activate my trap, offerings to the immortal. When my life points are 3,000 or less and you declare an attack, your attack is negated. Then, I special summon 2 offering tokens, and I can add one Earthbound Immortal card from my deck to my hand. UCI's eyes widened. What? I add Earthbound Immortal Kapakapu. Hikaru Amaji watched as the glowing Earthbound Geoglyph spread across the ground, pulsing with an eerie blue light. He glanced down at his left hand, his sign had begun to resonate. For a fleeting moment, it looked as though he and Kalen were connected, as if some strange, invisible bond linked them together against the Dragon Signers. Wait. In a sudden flash of realization, Hikaru's eyes widened. He finally understood what had felt off all this time. Why had UCI seemed so strange throughout this duel? Now he saw it, UCI's dragon mark hadn't lit up once to eye. In contrast, Jack's mark had already begun to glow brightly. My turn. Kalen shouted. Draw. I activate the field spell, Earthbound Geoglyph. The ground erupted with a blinding crimson pattern that stretched high into the sky, mirrored like a reflection between the heavens and the earth. From both the lower city and the upper city, countless people looked up in horror at the massive, terrifying sigil burning across the skyline. So, it begins, murmured Rex Goodwin, his hands folded calmly behind his back as he gazed upon the unfolding chaos. Above the city, a massive stone heart pulsed in midair, beating slowly. Thump, thump. I released the 2 tokens on my field as tributes. Kalen roared. Now, tribute summon. Earthbound Immortal Kapakapu. In that instant, countless points of light began rising into the air. Shinji stared in disbelief as he realized what they were, souls, and not just any souls, but the spirits of the living, security officers, and even familiar faces from the resistance. What's happening? He gasped. Crow's voice broke through the static of the dual runner combs. Those lights, aren't they the people who used Earthbound Geoglyph? What? Shinji shouted, horrified. Their sacrifices, Hikaru said quietly beside them. The Earthbound gods demand souls, human life itself, to awaken. Shinji froze. Among the drifting lights, he saw a resistance fighter he'd fought beside earlier that very day. His heart twisted painfully. Damn it, but this is a necessary sacrifice, he said through gritted teeth, forcing himself not to look at them. Kalen, what are you doing? UCI shouted across the roaring dual runner engines. Kaylin's laugh echoed wildly through the night. Ha 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 ha. I should thank you, UCI. It was thanks to your duel, your draw, and the destruction of Hundred Eyes Dragon that I gathered everything I needed. Now, let me show you the power of a true god. The earth cracked open. From the depths, a massive stone titan began to rise, its body wreathed in blue flames. The giant's form towered over the skyline, larger than the highest towers of the upper city, its gaze casting shadow over the world below. Earthbound Immortal Capac Apu. Level 10/Dark/Fiend/ATK 3000. Carly trembled, clutching her microphone. That thing, it's as strong as Red Dragon Archfiend. Kiryu thrust his arm forward. Capac Apu, attack. Trap card, Scrap Iron Scarecrow. UCI countered. Kiryu's laughter cut through the wind. Useless. Earthbound immortals are unaffected by spells and traps. Then I'll counterattack, Stardust. Top runner. Go! The two monsters rushed in unison, but passed straight through Capac Apu's massive palm like phantoms. What the? Jack shouted. Kaylin's grin widened. Earthbound gods can attack directly. You're finished, UCI. The giant's palm descended like a thunderclap. Boom! An enormous blue explosion shook the field, a blazing mushroom cloud rising skyward. Kaylin's laughter echoed through the chaos, until it stopped. Ha! As the smoke cleared, UCI emerged, battered but unharmed. What how? UCI held up a single card. I discarded Swift Scarecrow. When your monster declares a direct attack, I can discard this card to negate that attack and end the battle phase. Kiryu scowled. TCH, still playing your little tricks, huh? It doesn't matter. Capac Apu can't be targeted for attacks, and while he's on the field, you can't attack directly either. You're finished, UCI. Ha 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 ha. Looks like this world's coming to an end, UCI. So tell me, how should I rebuild it once I become the messenger of the one god? Yes, I'll erase the merchants, the money, all of it. Only duelists will remain. Ha 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 ha. UCI lowered his gaze to the cards still in his left hand, the ones he hadn't played. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then quietly, he spoke. No. Kaylin's grin faltered. Ha? I said no, UCI repeated firmly. There's still a chance, there's always a chance. I don't believe hope can be extinguished. And I won't accept a world destined only for destruction. Kaylin narrowed his eyes, the flames of the earthbound god flickering behind him. UCI closed his eyes for an instant, and in his mind, he was back there again. That blinding white world. That dead, silent wasteland where even breathing had vanished. The battle between gods repeats without end. Have you truly chosen a side? Positive or negative, does it matter? Humanity's fate is the same. Hope cannot exist, unless Synchro itself is erased from the beginning. UCI's eyes snapped open. No! The storm of fire and the crushing pressure of Capac Apu's breath tore at his body. Cracks spiderwebbed across his visor, then, with a sharp snap, the helmet split apart, revealing his face at last. UCI! Jack and Crow cried out in unison. Oh my god, his face. Carly gasped, covering her mouth. What is this? Hikaru whispered, eyes wide with shock. Even Kaylin froze, forgetting his rage for a moment. UCI, what happened to you? The right side of UCI's face looked as if it were being devoured by something unnatural. Black static shimmered across his skin, no, not smoke, numbers, fracturing and twisting like digital code. It was as if he were infected by some cybernetic god, the corruption spreading in chaotic tendrils. No wonder he had avoided public appearances. No wonder he had never once removed his helmet until now. UCI took a shuddering breath but smiled faintly. It's fine. Just side effects. A symptom of incompatibility with the artificial god project. He lifted his dual disc again, his eyes burning with resolve. Kalen, I still believe in you. Deep down, you're still our comrade. I believe that if every person, faces this together, we can fix the fate of our world. If Hikaru could once declare that fusion is the noblest form of summoning, then we shouldn't fear the power of synchro, we should embrace it. Kalen's expression darkened. What are you talking about? Yusiai's voice rose, clear and steady despite the pain racking his body. What I'm saying is... I'm sorry, Kalen. He looked down at his new card. Draw. I activate the spell card, Shallow Grave. Carly blinked in confusion. That card, it lets both players special summon monsters. Crow's jaw tightened. He's still trying to reach him. You? Kalen's voice trembled as he stared at his old friend. I know your pain, Kalen. I know you've faced death, and I know you don't believe in me anymore. But that doesn't matter. He raised his dual disc, the energy sparking wildly around his right arm. I'll make you believe, through this duel. I'll show you my resolve withdraw, and by bringing your monsters back to life. The effect of Shallow Grave activates. Both players choose one monster from their graveyard and set it on their field. I choose Stardust Spark Dragon. Kalen smirked. Then I choose 100 Ice Dragon. Now, Yusiai declared, I release the face-down Stardust Spark Dragon on my field, and the Stardust Spark Dragon already on the field. What? The spectators gasped. Release. Huh, 2 Stardusts. Shinji blurted out. Hikaru Amaji's eyes widened in disbelief. Both dragons shimmered and dissolved into motes of starlight, their forms ascending skyward. Yusiai lifted his hand, where a flame ignited between his fingers, burning hotter and brighter until it became a radiant sphere of fire. He hurled it into the air. Within the flame, a human visage appeared, gazing through a mirror upon the world below. It smiled, a gentle, sorrowful smile, before splitting apart into light. Mechanical arms unfolded. Wings of holy metal spread open. A radiant being descended from the heavens. Normal summon, Time Lord Metaion. Time Lord Metaion, level 10/fire/fairy/ATK0. The very card Yusiai had carried since the start of the duel, the one he had sworn never to use. ZZZZT. Sparks exploded across his visor. Yusiai clutched his right eye as the synthetic circuitry beneath his skin flared, scorching him. The acrid scent of burning metal filled the air. And then Kalen finally understood why Yusiai hadn't flinched, even when struck by 100 Ice Dragon or Capac Apu. Because Yusiai was already used to pain. But Metaion's ATK is 0. Crow cried. It's fine, Yusiai said, his voice steady. Metaion, attack 100 Ice Dragon. Are you insane? Jack shouted. 100 Ice has 2500 DEF. You'll lose the duel. Time Lord monsters take no battle damage. Metaion calmly raised its hands, gathering a small sphere of fire. With a flick, it struck the opposing monster and hovered silently, its gaze shifting toward the towering earthbound god. What's the point of this? Kalen muttered, bewildered. Then the air itself began to glow. A holy light slowly overtook the massive earthbound sigil in the sky. Without realizing it, everyone saw the darkness begin to fade. Metaion's effect activates. Yusiai shouted, voice rising over the Engine's roar. At the end of the battle phase in which this card battled, return all other monsters on the field to their owner's hands. Then, inflict 300 damage to your opponent for each card returned. Yes! Carly exclaimed, pumping her fist. That'll get rid of both 100 Ice Dragon and the Earthbound God. She turned excitedly toward Jack, expecting one of his confident remarks. But he wasn't smiling. He was staring at the ground, silent, stunned. Crow's helmet slipped from his fingers and clattered against the track, but he didn't even notice. At that moment, they all understood. UCI Fudo, the man they had always known as a signer of the Crimson Dragon, had abandoned that mark. He was fighting now as a human. He was seizing godlike power not for destiny, but for mankind itself. And to do that, he had submitted himself to the artificial god system. Kalen said nothing. A few hundred life points meant nothing anymore. He simply stared at UCI, speechless. The two divine entities clashed in midair, Metaion, the Time Lord, and Capac Apu, the earthbound god. The world itself shook from their collision, light and darkness bursting outward in waves. Ugh. UCI's body convulsed under the energy overload, while Kalen felt the earthbound god's wrath surge uncontrollably through his veins. ZZZZT boom. Explosions erupted across the massive geoglyph etched into the city. The ground quaked. Flames spiraled into chaos. UCI's D-wheel spun out of control and threw him violently to the ground. Kalen fared no better, engulfed in searing violet fire as the earthbound power backlashed against him. Ha! Hikaru's eyes widened. He slammed down his own accelerator, vaulting off the edge to chase them both. No one could have imagined that even now, the duel would end like this. A screw-pulling conclusion, just like old times. And only now did Hikaru finally understand why UCI had reached out for his help. Chapter 482, The Excluded Ones. Because both duelists were thrown from their D-wheels, the system ruled the match invalid. The duel was terminated. The towering wall of fire slowly faded away. One by one, the souls that had been devoured by the earthbound god drifted back along their original paths, returning to their bodies. Kalen staggered to his feet, steadying his D-wheel. He looked across the scorched track at UCI. UCI lay motionless, his body battered beyond recognition. The artificial systems implanted in him flickered erratically, he barely looked human anymore. Kalen, by comparison, had taken the lesser hit. If he wanted revenge, now was the time, he could have finished it. But as he stared down at the fallen UCI, the fire in his heart wasn't hatred anymore. What he felt instead was emptiness. A hollow ache deeper than any pain. The man who had once chased satisfaction now realized he was the emptiest soul alive. After a long silence, Kalen finally spoke, voice low and hoarse. Looks like I don't have to finish you off after all. Without positive and negative synchro energy to stabilize it, your artificial god will eat you alive. Cherish what little life you have left, UCI. He kicked his D-wheel into gear and roared off without looking back, his manic laughter fading into the distance. Shinji hesitated for a moment, then started his own engine, speeding off after Kalen before security could arrive. Moments later, Crow and Hikaru reached UCI's side. Crow jumped off his D-wheel and immediately hooked an arm under UCI's shoulders, struggling to lift him. Hikaru crouched down, scanning UCI's vitals with quick precision. That specter was right, Tiara murmured beside Hikaru, eyes sharp as she studied the fallen duelist. This human won't live long. 2 years at most. A blink of an eye. Even 2 years felt cruelly short, and to Tiara's kind beings, who measured life in centuries, it was nothing. UCI. Jack's voice thundered from above as a helicopter descended. Ignoring protocol, he leapt straight out before it even touched down, startling the two women inside into shrieks. He hit the ground in a roll, sprinted forward, and grabbed UCI's other arm. You idiot! You've been hiding from us all this time, just to pull something like this alone. Hey, easy. Hikaru warned, raising a hand. Don't shake him, you'll make his injuries worse. Startled, both Jack and Crow froze, then gently eased UCI onto his D-wheel frame, laying him flat. Hikaru's movements were calm but urgent. He worked like a field medic, connecting small diagnostic tools to check his pulse and core systems. UCI, he said quietly, Kalen wasn't wrong back there. You know what's happening to you, don't you? UCI's eyes fluttered open. A spark of static jumped across the right side of his face, making Jack and Crow both jerk back in alarm. It's fine, UCI said softly. I was prepared for this. Prepared? Jack snapped. You still owe me that rematch, UCI Fudo. Don't you dare collapse before that. Yeah. Crow added, his voice cracking between anger and worry. You've been hiding out, getting modified, and you didn't even tell us? What, you think we wouldn't have your back? Their frustration couldn't hide the concern underneath it. UCI smiled faintly, the edges of his mouth trembling but peaceful. I just didn't want anyone to see me like this, he admitted. Didn't want to scare anyone. He paused for a moment, then began to explain everything, the truth he had kept buried. It had happened one day, during his last duel with Jack. When Stardust Dragon and Red Dragon Archfiend resonated, a flash of crimson light engulfed them both. And when the duel ended, UCI found himself somewhere else. In the distant future. A world countless years ahead, where humanity no longer existed. Almost instantly, the people of that time found him. And that's when he learned the truth. Humanity had destroyed itself. Their greed and malice had caused their perpetual engines to spiral out of control. From that disaster, the planet itself had manifested its will, a mechanical consciousness known as Mechlord Emperor, the Earth's own vengeance, and it had wiped civilization from existence. There, UCI learned of the War of the One God, and heard that man's thoughts. The world had always suffered through endless cycles of pain, and the root of it all traced back countless millennia to the age when gods still walked among creation. Once, the gods cooperated in harmony. Through that divine resonance, they gave birth to a mysterious power known as Synchro, a force born from unity, from the rhythm of countless wills beating as one. But that same power sowed the seeds of conflict. Gods turned against gods. Their war echoed downward, spreading to angels, demons, spirits, and finally humankind. Each race, once inspired by the gods, began fighting to possess Synchro for themselves. And in the far, far future, when humanity's greed finally reached its peak, the perpetual engines born from Synchro's science spiraled out of control. From that catastrophe arose the Mechlord Emperor, a mechanical god forged by the will of the planet itself, created for one purpose, to exterminate mankind. In the end, humanity perished by its own sins. When UCI was cast into that ruined future, the last surviving humans he encountered gave him a chilling proposal. If that's our fate, then go back to the beginning. Erase Synchro from history. Stop its birth, stop its spread. End it in every dimension. It sounded like the perfect solution, an end to the cycle, a single, clean cut to erase suffering forever. But UCI refused. He offered another possibility, a future not of erasure, but of understanding. A world where gods, spirits, and humans could stand together, where all existence could truly resonate in harmony. Because from the very beginning, Synchro was not born from conflict, it was born from countless gods working side by side to create a better world. It was a symbol of unity and hope. Power itself was never evil. Only how it was used determined its destiny. Lying on the D-wheel now, UCI smiled faintly, remembering. Ha! I guess you inspired me, Hikaru, he murmured. He recalled the duel at the Friendship Cup, a match that, for the fusion dimension, was just another tournament, but for UCI, it became the turning point of his life. That duel had earned him a place in the Fortune Cup, a chance to face Jack again, to finally understand him. There, he met people from the fusion dimension and saw how their society worked. He met Hikaru, the scholar of another world, and through him, he glimpsed technologies and philosophies his own dimension had never reached. Just as Hikaru learned the essence of alchemy from the way UCI built D-wheels, UCI, too, came to understand countless physical and metaphysical truths. But most important of all, was Hikaru's faith in his world's fusion. Even when faced with Synchro, faster and more advanced, he showed no fear. When Yuya's identity drew suspicion, he didn't judge, he defended him. Even after winning, he showed no arrogance toward the Synchro users. His heart remained open, unwavering. From that, UCI learned to believe. In his friends. In the bonds they shared. In the future they could still build. He believed, no, he knew, that a new future could be born. Not from erasing Synchro, but from elevating it. So he chose the harder path, the uncertain, impossible one. He chose to merge with the artificial being created by that man, to become the god of unity, not to rule, but to end the endless cycle of pain. He wanted to stop the meaningless struggle. To end the conflict, as a human being. Even for me, this path is untested. UCI, this choice will lead to the unknown. It is the most difficult and most dangerous of all possibilities. Among countless choices, you've chosen the one none dared to walk. If you choose this path, every living being will doubt you. Those chosen by the gods who crave synchro power. The tyrants who believe only in their own supremacy. The fools who think they can create peace by control. The skeptics who cannot comprehend selflessness. To all of them, you will be an enemy. And yet you intend to make them believe in you, to help them lay down their hatred? That's almost impossible. Humanity's entire history is a history of war. Because the hearts of men are filled with desire and malice, that's why our world truly fell. Are you truly willing to try? UCI had answered only one word. Of course. He never told anyone what he and that man said in their final conversation. But his resolve was clear enough that he didn't need to. Jack turned away with a deep breath. Crow rubbed his eyes with the back of his sleeve, pretending it was just the smoke. Neither could bring themselves to scold him. Jack clenched his fist, his usual fire reigniting. Ha! I get it now. Fine. Just like back in the satellite, we'll paint this whole world black if we have to. Crow grinned, nodding fiercely. Yeah. Nothing we can't handle. First thing, we're getting our captain back. No way we're letting that guy run off alone again. Sunlight broke through the clouds, spilling across them. For the first time in what felt like forever, UCI smiled, a quiet, genuine smile. He took a slow breath, sat up, and fastened his helmet once more. With the visor on, he looked almost like his old self again, calm, determined, unstoppable. So, Hikaru said softly, "What exactly is it you need from me?" UCI turned toward him, his voice steady but filled with warmth. Hikaru. You're the key. No one else can do this. Without you, I'd never even get close. I had a feeling you'd say that, he replied, folding his arms. UCI's expression grew serious. I want you to help me find a chance, a single opportunity. Hikaru's eyes narrowed. A chance for what? He already knew the answer before he said it. In a world where even UCI Fudo had lost certainty, there was only one thing he'd ask for, one impossible task left undone. A chance. UCI said quietly, to reach out to the fusion-bound earthbound immortal, the one exiled from this world. Fusion. Chapter 483, Pay. To call it exiled was, in truth, only a theory. Everything UCI knew so far came from the future, from that ruined timeline. But in this present world, he still didn't know what the earthbound gods truly were. Even merged with the artificial god, his knowledge was limited to foresight, not omniscience. He understood Kalen's deck, yes, but not every card within it, and as for the state of the earthbound gods themselves, even UCI would have to uncover that, piece by piece. Still, his investigations had revealed much. So when he realized Hikaru had crossed into this dimension, UCI acted immediately, saving him from security pursuit, and later offering assistance. Before that, however, UCI had to be sure, why had Hikaru come to this world? If Hikaru's mission was simple diplomacy from the fusion dimension, UCI wouldn't interfere. He would simply wait. But now it was clear, Hikaru had come for one reason only, the dark marks. You're not afraid I might have my own motives? Hikaru asked quietly. I trust Yuya and Rin's judgment, UCI replied. And I trust the passion I saw in your duels, your conviction in fusion. Hikaru gave a short, amused exhale. Heh, fine then. Tell me everything. UCI nodded. It's much like what you already know. During the struggle for Synchro, the so-called One God was born. Other deities either became subordinate or were sealed away as earthbound immortals. The lesser ones were simply cast down as demons and monsters. He met Hikaru's gaze squarely. And I can tell you this, the dark mark on your left hand is the true mark of the earthbound gods. Hikaru lowered his eyes to his wrist, studying the faint glow there, and gave a single nod. But just as I said, Yusei continued. Over long ages, some gods were sealed as earthbound, others branded as fiends. And the one I'm asking your help to find is a being both sealed and enslaved, an earthbound immortal in chains. I see, Hikaru murmured, his eyes narrowing. So that's what it's become in your world. In that moment, he finally understood the situation, how even divine beings here could fall so far. Before parting, Hikaru offered practical help. After all, merging man and being was something he knew well. He had once orchestrated a face-to-face communion between Jaden and the Supreme King himself. And Yusei's condition now was the same kind of misalignment, the imperfect union of man and artificial god. Just like Divine's psychic and Punisher experiment, which failed to ascend to godhood, the artificial god couldn't synchronize with Yusei's human essence. He wasn't like Akiza, born with psychic power. Hikaru, for all his calm restraint, had an easier solution than Yusei realized. The psychic Punisher he'd salvaged not long ago, one of Divine's discarded creations, was perfect material. If Hikaru were willing to endure the cost, he could extract its psionic core, channel the energy directly into Yusei's body, and then use super polymerization to merge away every trace of biological rejection. Elegant. Efficient. Painful to his wallet, but simple. Even Tiara, ever the watchful being of light and data, approved of the idea. She had grown genuinely fond of this human, this reckless duelist who dared to defy the gods. She even asked Hikaru what Yusei's full name was, as if she wanted to remember it for eternity. After all, Yusei embodied everything Tiara admired: artificial divinity, machinery, time, and life. The path he'd chosen promised endless variables and unimaginable outcomes. To her, that made Yusei a far greater investment than a risk. But Yusei had refused. Accepting Hikaru's help without giving anything in return went against everything he stood for. It wasn't pride, it was conviction. He wasn't rejecting fusion or synchro out of ideology. He simply couldn't allow Hikaru to make sacrifices without equal exchange. That was the foundation of his humanity, the one thing he refused to lose. So Hikaru didn't argue. He only watched as Yusei and Crow rode off, and then unfolded the map Yusei had left him. His eyes narrowed as he saw the marked coordinates. So that's where it is. No wonder I couldn't find it before, he muttered. A faint smile crossed his face. You really never take the easy road, Yusei. High above, Jack climbed aboard the helicopter, staring down at the scarred wasteland below. For a moment, the echo of Kaylin's laughter lingered in his ears, and with it, the memory of his own sins. Stealing Stardust Dragon. Chasing strength to stand above everyone else. He clenched his fist, watching the faint red glow fade from his wrist. Yusei had given up the Crimson Dragon's power. Technically, that made him Jack's rival, even an enemy. But the bond they shared, that would never fade. Yusei, Jack whispered, this time, let me be the one to help you. Elsewhere, Yusei and Crow sped along the ruined highway. Crow stayed close, worried for him, unwilling to leave his side, and Yusei, realizing there was no longer a point in hiding his condition, allowed Crow to help with his adjustments, fine-tuning his unstable circuits as they rode. Between bursts of wind, the two talked about old times, old friends, the city that still stood behind them. Crow's expression tightened as he glanced at his left hand. Ever since his argument with Shinji that day, a thought had been gnawing at him. He wanted power, power to protect, to intervene, to matter, but every time he reached for that strength, something darker stirred inside him. A violent, predatory whisper. The same kind that had swallowed Shinji. The same that had once devoured Kaylin. And Crow was terrified of it. He feared that power, but more than that, he feared himself. How could someone like Hikaru remain so calm? How did he carry that kind of serenity even while standing between gods? Crow didn't know. But he wanted to learn. At that moment, the man Crow looked up to was already far ahead, his D-wheel roaring down the coastal road. Police sirens wailed faintly behind him, but Hikaru didn't so much as glance back. SSHHHH. He slowed near the guardrail and looked toward the horizon. Under a clear blue sky stretched an even deeper blue sea. Waves rolled in and out, their rhythm steady and patient, sometimes gentle, sometimes surging with quiet power. The ocean. That same view he'd seen every day from the mountain curve, now close enough to touch. He exhaled. A hidden place, perfectly chosen. No wonder it stayed invisible all this time. "Hikaru," came a voice from his dual disc, deep, resonant, and faintly aquatic. "I feel it. The gaze of the dark god who watches me." It was Muddy Mudragon, his current dual spirit and guardian. The dragon's spectral form shimmered faintly beside him. "Then we're close," Hikaru said softly. The dragon's eyes narrowed toward the ocean. Beneath those waves, it could already sense the dormant presence, earthbound servant Geokraken, the only demigod who could guide them to the sealed earthbound servant Geogratia. The moment broke as red and blue lights flashed behind him. Security patrols had finally caught up, closing in from both sides, forming a blockade. Hikaru smiled. With a single motion, he yanked the throttle. The D-wheel's rear tires screamed, then launched skyward off the guardrail, straight down toward the beach. Normally, a D-wheel would stall instantly on sand, its wheels choking on every grain. But as Hikaru's landed, the frame hummed with a strange light and kept accelerating. The stunned officers stared from the cliffs above. Then disbelief turned to shock. As Hikaru's D-wheel did the unthinkable, he drove straight across the surface of the ocean. "What the?" Every officer froze. Even Chief Trudge removed his cap, eyes wide. And beneath that miraculous path of water, a violet sigil began to glow, a circular crest of ancient lines and symbols slowly surfacing beneath the waves like a heartbeat from the deep. Chapter 484, Personal Action. As Hikaru accelerated, a violet trail of light bloomed beneath his wheels, spreading outward across the surface of the sea like a shining road. He looked down through the shifting blue below, and there, half buried beneath the ocean floor, he finally saw it. A massive geoglyph, etched into the seabed itself. No wonder it had eluded every search. Hidden under the waves, unreachable by normal means. Without UCI's data, he might never have found it at all. The waves began to swell, crashing around him. A storm rose without warning, each surge threatening to pull him under. Just before the tide could swallow him whole, a roar split the heavens. From above, a black skeletal dragon swept past, its presence alone driving the waves back in a spiraling wall of foam. Dragonecro Nethersal Dragon, Hikaru's dual spirit, circled him, its hollow eyes burning with eerie blue fire. And through the bond they shared, Hikaru could feel it, a pulse of excitement, something ancient stirring within the dragon's heart. Rara Araer. From the depths came another cry, low, resonant, alien. A heat flared against Hikaru's left hand. He looked down. The crimson-black dark mark burned with strange, radiant color. "It's coming." The sea erupted. Massive tendrils rose from the deep, each one engraved with sacred, twisting sigils. Then, with a roar that shook the sky, a colossal shadow burst from the ocean, a black-purple leviathan, a monstrous cephalopod whose body blotted out the sun. "Impossible." Muddy Mudragon whispered, its spectral body trembling. "Earthbound servant Geokraken. And that is the dark god who oversees it." The creature wasted no time. One titanic tentacle crashed downward toward Hikaru. "Gra-ah!" The necro dragon roared back, slashing upward to meet the blow. Claws and tentacle collided, and the impact unleashed a blinding flare of light, a color not known to this world. The shockwave rippled through the air, forcing both titans back. Nethersal Dragon flapped its tattered wings, withdrew a few meters, and let out a low growl, not in fear, but in recognition. Then Geokraken howled again, its cry so deep that the sea itself began to boil. Nethersal Dragon answered in kind, and from the corner of its eye, a single tear slid free, falling silently into the water below. In the age before mankind, long before the Signers or Synchro even existed, these two had known each other. When the gods first wove together the power of Synchro. Each divine being had its own resonance, just as the ancient giant Hundred-Eyes Dragon embodied the negative Synchro force of its master. But among those countless gods, dragons, and demi-divine beings, there were outliers, like Undead Dragon and Chatsuchalua. Dragon Necro Nethersal had been lucky, though no longer bound to a signer, it had found a new master it trusted completely. Earthbound servant Geokraken had not. Its master had fallen, unable even to protect itself, let alone its servant. And so the squid god had been abandoned, sealed, forgotten beneath the waves. Now, when it saw Dragon Necro Nethersal Dragon again, it struck not from hatred, but from despair. Kraken! Hikaru shouted across the roaring surf. Why are you attacking? He'd promised Yusei he'd find the earthbound servant Geogracia, but right now, this confrontation was far more urgent. The earthbound's enormous form twitched. Perhaps it was the dragon's presence, perhaps the familiar echo of its old comrade, but its wild gaze began to soften. Its many eyes turned toward Hikaru. They focused on his left arm, where the dark mark pulsed with crimson light. It was the mark of its leader. Swoosh! Countless tentacles lashed uncontrollably against the surface of the sea. Even though its sanity had returned, it still seemed bound by chains and restraints, forced to continue carrying out its duty, its assigned role. Amid crashing waves and slamming tentacles, Hikaru skillfully weaved through every obstacle, displaying acceleration techniques so sharp that even the earthbound servant Geokraken was struck with awe, though, in truth, Hikaru didn't actually know how to drive. The D-wheel was steering itself, he was only supplying it with energy. Regardless of the reason, the fact that Hikaru could so effortlessly evade its attacks gave the Kraken a chance, just barely, to resist the enslavement upon it and respond to his question. It raised one of its tentacles and pointed, first at Dragon Necro Nethersal Dragon, then at Mudragon of the swamp. Mudragon scratched its head in confusion. What are you trying to say? The Kraken couldn't speak. Bound by countless chains and shackles, it didn't even have the chance to communicate. Mudragon and Dragon Necro, what do they have in common? Wait, are you saying it's because Mudragon carries the power of the Crimson Dragon? Hikaru suddenly remembered Mudragon's past. The reason Mudragon had become a synchro monster at all was because it had once been blessed by the Crimson Dragon, granting it a fragment of synchro power. Geokraken's massive body rose and fell upon the waves, as if affirming Hikaru's deduction. I see. Mudragon, too, began to understand. During their time together, it had learned much from Hikaru about this world's secrets, the ongoing struggle for control over synchro energy. And the god that had once saved it was apparently now the so-called One God. In that case, it was no wonder that the earthbound gods had marked it for death, sending their enslaved servants to hunt it down step by step. At first, the Kraken's assault had only been retaliation, a reaction to Mudragon's sudden appearance. But once its master realized that Mudragon had received the Crimson Dragon's blessing and carried a trace of its red synchro light, there was no way the earthbound deity controlling the servants would ever let it go. It wanted to steal that crimson synchro energy. Because it sought ascension. Suddenly, a tentacle shot up from the depths, lunging straight toward the unsuspecting Hikaru. Hikaru! Mudragon cried out. Dragon Necro, still lost in memory, nearly froze in horror before snapping back, roaring and surging toward him. But... whap! There wasn't even a ripple. The tentacle struck mere centimeters from Hikaru, yet not even his coat fluttered. At some point, Tiara had appeared beside him, yawning. I thought this was going to be a duel, turns out it's an obstacle race? Step on it already, Hikaru. Forget the hazards. Dragon Necro and Mudragon both slowed down. Ha! Hikaru gave a quiet laugh, then slammed the throttle forward, racing ahead with blazing speed. Even though Geokraken flailed and thrashed, trying every way to stop him from completing the glowing sea sigil, the earth painting, it couldn't hinder him. In the end, Hikaru traced the entire pattern across the ocean's surface, completing the earthbound seal. A deep, resonant sound rang out from the sea, like the mournful horn of a distant ship. It was both a cry and a sigh of release. Crack! Crack! The chains coiled around its body, the countless shackles binding its tentacles, shattered one by one. On the sea's surface, it let out one final cry before dissolving into countless violet fragments, scattering into the air. At last, it transformed completely into a glowing card, wrapped in purple light, and drifted gently into Hikaru's hands. Hikaru caught the card. The moment his fingers touched it, countless images flashed before his eyes. Some of them were fragments of Geokraken's memories, messages it wished to pass on before its release. Others showed the path to finding Earthbound servant Geograsha. But most importantly, at the end of Geokraken's memory was a vision. A colossal god, its entire body wreathed in roaring flame, commanding countless serpents that coiled like living rivers of fire. Wherever it appeared, the earth itself ignited, wherever it gazed, the spirits bowed in submission. Human! Who permitted you to look upon me? Suddenly, the fiery god turned its head, and looked directly at Hikaru. With one swing of its fist, the entire planet trembled, the blow crashing down toward the point of Hikaru's vision. That memory, that divine presence within the memory, had noticed him. Hikaru's eyes flew open, breath sharp and cold. Even Tiara, who had shared the vision through their mental link, gasped in shock. She had seen it too, and even she, a being who had stared into countless worlds, felt something she hadn't known in eons: fear. Hikaru slowly rubbed his temples, forcing his voice steady. The god of the earthbound gods, the one who ruled even over them all. At the same time, in the upper city, within the noble district designated Zone 2, a rare sight unfolded. Noblemen, all dressed in formal attire, stood waiting in front of a towering machine. The vast dimensional gate began to hum and rotate, its mechanisms grinding open as a detachment of soldiers marched out and lined the walkway in 2 rows. The nobles exchanged practiced smiles, bending their posture into expressions of flattery. Finally, from the glowing gateway, a man in a deep violet professor's uniform and a sweeping cape stepped forward with long, deliberate strides. "Ah, Professor Akaba. We never expected you to come in person, ha ha ha." "Duke," Leo Akaba replied, his tone polite yet devoid of warmth, "a pleasure to see you." "Ha ha ha, what an honor. To think you yourself wished to inspect the site. Well then, no need to delay. Allow me to guide you at once, to the land of the crimson flames you wished to see." Chapter 485, Fusion Army Invasion. Leo Akaba, guided by the nobles, finally reached the sacred domain of the earthbound gods. As members of the upper class, those with both resources and leisure to study ancient records, the nobles knew secrets far beyond the grasp of ordinary citizens. And they all knew the name of this world's mightiest earthbound deity. Earthbound god Red Supernova. A being once considered equal to the Crimson Dragon itself. That, too, was the root of Leo Akaba's confidence. Although he had failed to obtain the original sacred beasts or their true power, through science and dimensional technology he had already replicated portions of their energy. In addition, he had perfected solid vision technology and gained cooperation from deities of other dimensions. His campaign against the X dimension had not gone smoothly, but even failure had proven instructive. He had underestimated the other worlds. If his dimension could create beings like God, then the others might not be as simple as they appeared. Hidden beneath each world's surface were layers of truth that ordinary humans could never reach, just as the Synchro dimension held its own secret, the War of the One God. And so, Leo reformulated his plan. After careful analysis, he concluded that the Synchro dimension was now the most fragile among all. The class divide between its people was its greatest weakness. All he needed to do was ally with one side, then suppress and dominate the other. Victory would come easily. Moreover, while this world possessed divine forces, those forces could still be bargained with. Thus, when he learned that the nobles had a means to commune with the local gods, he immediately decided to intervene personally, to take control of the dimension himself, with his own hands. Soon, he came face to face with Red Supernova, the god of earthbound gods. Unlike the lesser deities, this one, stronger even than the Crimson Dragon, had retained its will, its intellect, and its might despite the sealing of its body. When it heard that beings from another dimension wished to serve it, the god laughed thunderously and accepted their worship on the spot. "Offer me power, offer me souls. Revive me. Once I am whole again, even without an emissary, I will face the Crimson Dragon once more. The god had sensed something extraordinary in the ongoing struggle of the worlds. And so, it too desired outside aid. That was exactly what Leo Akiba had hoped for. With Red Supernova's blessing, he felt the entire world fall within his grasp. The power of the Fusion Dimension's sacred beasts, the XYZ Dimension's numbers, and now the Synchro Dimension's earthbound gods, the strongest forces of every world coursed within him. Who, now, could possibly stand in his way? Meanwhile, his scientists were distributing scientifically manufactured fusion monster cards to the local nobles, designed to synchronize with the security forces' monsters. In this way, even ordinary soldiers would gain tremendous strength, a gift the nobles found invaluable in suppressing the restless citizens below. And beyond that, Goodwin, who had long opposed them, had survived only because of his influence within the Security Bureau. Now, with the fusion army at their backs, the nobles felt sure they could crush him completely. Their power had once been held in delicate balance, but with this new alliance, that balance was about to break. Just as everyone was celebrating and enjoying themselves, a voice suddenly broke through the celebration. "Ah, that reminds me, Professor Akiba," said one noble casually, "recently, we discovered another fusion dimensioner in our sector. What's strange is, he's marked with a Dark Signer's mark. He might have been summoned here by one of the earthbound gods. Would you take a look, see if you recognize him?" He flipped his tablet around to show Akiba Leo. The moment the image appeared, all noise stopped. The boasting scientists, bragging generals, smug soldiers drunk on their newfound earthbound power, and even Leo himself, all froze, as though someone had pressed pause on the entire fusion army. "Ha!" The noble blinked, not understanding. Then a soldier screamed, a raw, terrified cry that split the silence. Amagi Hikaru. It was a cry of pure horror, as though he'd seen the end of the world. The top of the academy. The absolute fusionist. The genius of all geniuses. The GX champion. They muttered his names, his titles, one after another, every single one except the one no fusion soldier dared to utter aloud. They weren't just shocked. They were afraid. Only now did the arrogant nobles finally understand who Hikaru truly was. A man even the fusion army considered a threat. Who was this person? Akiba Leo narrowed his eyes. Humph. The answer of fusion, is it? Why was he in this world? He turned to a nearby researcher, who was already frantically typing. "Professor, Growler is still in Dual Academy," the man reported, "in a meeting with merchants and scholars. He's not in this dimension." Leo's eyes widened slightly, then curved upward in a slow, sharp smile. "Good." One of his generals stepped forward eagerly. "It seems Hikaru was dragged here by the dark sign through dimensional interference, Professor. This is our chance." Exactly. A perfect chance. In this world, where Growler could not reach him, Hikaru was alone. Leo could eliminate him completely, cutting off one of Growler's most powerful allies. And if necessary, he could do it himself. The thought pleased him. For his grand design, it was nothing less than a gift. "It seems you have quite the grudge against this man, Professor," a blonde noble chuckled. "In that case, why not make him our first target? The symbol of our partnership." Leo glanced at him, expression unreadable. "A dark signer, ha!" Then, coldly decisive. "Just in case, Lelos, you'll go as well." A tall general stepped forward from the line, saluted crisply, and said, "Yes, sir." Leo clasped his hands behind his back, walking toward the edge of the dimensional gate. From the noble's district balcony, he looked down upon the Synchro dimension. The next step, toward unifying all dimensions, begins now. And this time, no one would be able to stop him. Chapter 486, Strategy? As Hikaru drove off the ocean's surface, glancing at the card that contained the earthbound servant Geokraken's power, the security officers stationed along the coast suddenly stirred. A blond, blue-eyed man in an ornate noble suit pulled up in a gleaming luxury sports car that had sped all the way from the upper city. His arrival immediately caused a commotion among the officers. They recognized him at once. It was one of the noble duelists who constantly appeared in magazines and on the giant GG billboards in Central City. The noble stepped out, and before anything else, began berating the security team led by Ushio. "Why haven't you caught that interdimensional traveler Hikaru yet?" He waved his gloved hand impatiently. "If you put in just a little more effort each day, spent 2 more hours on pursuit instead of idling, you would have succeeded by now. When I was young, I worked 24 hours a day in the mines to reach my current position." It was the kind of story that might fool the commoners, but certainly not Trudge. Though he bowed respectfully, his expression stayed flat, and his thoughts were sharp and bitter. Your family's owned 3 mines for generations. The only thing you've ever done in one is sip wine at the spa next door. Still, for the sake of his job, Trudge said nothing and kept his head down. TCH, useless bunch with no ambition. The noble shook his head and turned toward the beach. By then, Hikaru had returned from the sea and was stepping onto the sand. Seeing the police blockade and the noble's arrival, Hikaru raised an eyebrow slightly. "You're the dimensional traveler, Hikaru, aren't you?" the noble called with a grin. "I am Lord Fink, Earl of Grandross, from City's Upper District." "Hikaru Amagi. You've been wanted across this dimension, haven't you? That must be troublesome." "Ha ha. If you can defeat me in a duel, I can have that bounty lifted. Besides, as a messenger of the gods, you must crave dueling others like yourself, to claim greater power." Hikaru's eyebrow twitched upward. "Fine." He started to roll his D-wheel toward the track. "Oh no, that won't be necessary," Lord Fink waved dismissively. "I don't participate in those speed duels the commoners invented." "What?" Hikaru frowned deeply. He already knew the nobles of this world were arrogant, but this was absurd even for them. The Earthbound gods' battles required riding duels to trace the Earthbound lines. Without them, how could a proper summoning even occur? Riding duels were born from the pursuit of freedom, one of the synchro dimension's very foundations. "Come now, I'm being generous," Fink continued smugly. "If we were riding dueling, my car's speed alone would leave you in the dust. You'd lose before the first turn was over." He clearly hadn't considered that duels could end through something other than a race. Hikaru let out a soft chuckle. "Fine by me." He didn't care about the format, only about getting what he came for. Let UCI and the others worry about the philosophy of this world. Hikaru detached his dual disc, locking it onto his arm. With a burst of light, the futuristic grid pattern unfolded in a shimmer of blue circuitry. Lord Fink's dual disc gleamed in response, gilded and ostentatious, like jewelry meant for display. Duel. ×2. As their duel began, one of the younger officers whispered to Tetsu Trudge. "Captain, if Lord Fink loses, are we really supposed to just let Hikaru go?" He sounded nervous, mostly about who'd take the blame. Tetsu snorted coldly. If it had been before, he would have said, "The noble's in charge, don't worry about it." But experience told him otherwise. If Lord Fink lost, the fallout would never touch the noble. All of it, every failure, every reprimand, would fall on their squad. A pay cut at best, demotion or dismissal at worst. As the host, "Allow me the first move," Fink said pleasantly. Hikaru gave him a sharp look, then gestured coolly. "Go ahead." Lord Fink LP, 4,000. Hikaru LP, 4,000. "Ha ha ha. You've fallen right into my trap, Hikaru." Just then, a sharp voice rang out from the cliff above the shore. A man in a purple military uniform landed beside Lord Fink with a loud thud, laughing wildly as his boots struck the sand. The Fusion Army? Hikaru's eyes narrowed. So they were already here. He hadn't expected them to show up this soon, but it didn't surprise him. After all, in the original timeline, the Fusion Army had collaborated with the nobles of the Synchro Dimension, developing hybrid synchrofusion technology. So it's begun already, just earlier than planned. The surrounding security officers, confused and nervous, began whispering among themselves. "Who's that guy? No clue. He looks like a soldier? Ha ha ha. My apologies, Hikaru, Lord Fink said smugly. But this too is part of military strategy. Dueling isn't limited to what happens inside the arena, what happens outside matters just as much. I've long been in contact with this man, Commander Lilos, who's provided me with all the intel I need on you. Lilos sneered. Hikaru, didn't expect this, did you? While you've been wandering this dimension, the Fusion Army has already formed an alliance with the local nobility. You're far from home, and not even Growler can save you now. Prepare yourself for death. This time, you're finished. Professor Akaba himself has arrived in this dimension. You're not leaving alive. Hikaru, who had maintained his usual calm expression, suddenly froze. The moment he heard Akaba Leo, his pupils contracted. His entire aura shifted, pressure rolled out from him like a storm. A surge of violet energy rippled through the sand at his feet, coalescing into a tangible wave of fury. Even though Lilos stood several meters higher on the cliff, he suddenly felt as if Hikaru's towering presence was looking down on him, as if the young man's shadow had grown impossibly large. Ha! Akaba Leo is in this world, is he? Hikaru murmured, the corners of his mouth twisting upward. A cold grin split his face, sharp, unnatural, almost feral. That smile alone made Lilos take half a step back before he even realized it. In that instant, a chill ran down his spine. Until now, even knowing Hikaru's reputation within the Fusion Army, he had only regarded him as a dangerous rival. But seeing him like this, seeing the raw, unrestrained power radiating off him, he finally understood. He understood why so many within the Fusion Army both feared and idolized Hikaru. Humph, Lilos forced a smirk to hide his unease. Whatever you are, you've already lost half this battle before it even began. Indeed. Lord Fink, still oblivious to the tension beside him, laughed loudly and drew a card from his deck. I already learned about your deck problems from the Fusion Army. Ha, even though you've dueled in our dimension quite a few times, we still haven't figured out the weakness of your deck, Hikaru. Then let's see what the Fusion Army's scientists have given me. Fink raised his hand, grinning with predatory delight. I discard one polymerization from my hand to activate the continuous spell. Fusion Doom. Fusion Doom? Hikaru frowned, trying to recall the card's effect. Send one polymerization from your hand to the graveyard to activate this card. Then, banish up to 3 spell or trap cards in your opponent's deck that include fusion in their name. For each one banished, inflict 300 damage to your opponent. And that's not all. While this card remains on the field, every time you activate a spell or trap card with fusion in its name, this card can negate that activation, destroy the card, and deal 300 points of damage to you. Hikaru's eyes narrowed, a flicker of irritation crossing his face. Ha ha ha! Lord Lilos already told me the key components of your deck, Hikaru. So I'll banish your fusion substitute, fusion recycling plant, and instant fusion. The dual disc on Hikaru's arm responded automatically. 3 cards shot out of his deck, hovering briefly in front of him before shattering like waves crashing on rock, disintegrating into violet dust that scattered into the air. Hikaru LP, 3100. Ha 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 ha. Chapter 487, God and Slaves. Fusion Doom, a continuous spell that seals off all fusion cards. It not only banishes up to 3 fusion-related cards from the opponent's deck, but its true power lies in its permanent lockdown. Whenever the opponent activates a spell or trap whose name includes fusion, it can negate that activation, destroy the card, and burn the opponent for 300 damage. Normally, to get around this, a duelist would need to chain their fusions, first baiting a negation with another spell, then quickly activating a quick play fusion during the same chain to bypass the effect. But for Hikaru, this wasn't even an obstacle. After all, while Fusion Doom can negate any card with fusion in its name, there are plenty of fusion spells and traps that don't actually have fusion in their titles. For example, his Ace card. A card Hikaru only brings out when he's fighting at full strength. Flame Swordsman. That card performs fusion summons without ever being affected by Fusion Doom. However, Lilos had prepared for that too. If Fusion Doom locked away the fusion cards, he'd need ways to counter the alternatives, cards like Magical Meltdown, which protect fusion summons from negation, and others like Flame Sword's Realm, which enable continuous fusion summons. So, normal summon, spell Reactor RE. Hikaru arched an eyebrow. Oh, the reactor line. A serpentine machine, armed with rotary cannons, coiled on the field. Spell Reactor RE level 3/dark/machine/ATK 1200. Finally, I set one card face down and end my turn, Fink said smugly, covering his card with theatrical flair. Spell Reactor could destroy an opponent's spell when activated and burn for 800 damage, not overwhelmingly strong, but perfect for interference. As a nuisance to disrupt Hikaru, it fit neatly into their plan. Well, Tenjo Hikaru, Lilos said with arms crossed, how's that for your welcome strategy? My turn. Draw. Hikaru glanced at his hand, his voice calm but edged. Honestly, I'm getting tired of this. What? Lilos frowned, confused. You fusion army people, Hikaru said flatly, call yourselves fusion duelists, yet you always duel me with anti-fusion tactics. He raised his duel disc and slid a card onto the field. Limiting fusion summons, blocking extra decks, destroying fusion spells, hiding behind numbers monsters, for an army that claims to honor fusion, you sure don't have the courage to fight me with fusion itself. Hikaru. Lilos snarled through gritted teeth. Normal summon, Predaplant Chlamydosundu. TCH. Lilos' face twisted the moment he saw it, exactly what he'd been afraid of. Because within all his counter-fusion preparations, there was one loophole Hikaru could still exploit, monster-based fusion summons. Predaplant Chlamydosundu level 2/dark/plant/ATK 600. Surprised? Hikaru said lightly. You really shouldn't be. You should have seen this coming. Oof. As the professor's soldier, of course I anticipated it. I just didn't expect you to draw it right now. Draw it? Hikaru's tone turned razor-sharp, mocking. Foolish. Laughable. You still dare to talk about strategy? Didn't your Fusion Doom let you see my entire decklist? The moment you saw I had Predaplants but no Chlamydosundu, you should have known this was coming. Lilos' face twisted, struck speechless. Predaplant Chlamydosundu's effect, Hikaru continued coolly. During my main phase, it lets me fusion summon using monsters from my hand and field. I fuse Predaplant Chlamydosundu on my field with Destiny Hero, draw guy in my hand. Fusion summon. Arise, Predaplant Chimeraplegia. A massive, violet-petaled flower monster burst from the sand, its vines writhing like serpents. Its roar scattered the dust, shaking the air. Predaplant Chimeraplegia level 7/dark/plant/ATK 2500. That damned flower again. Lilos muttered, wincing. Chimeraplegia's effect, once per turn, I can target one monster whose level is equal to or lower than this card's level, and banish it. Hikaru pointed sharply at the serpentine mech. Your spell reactor and that continuous spell of yours both only affect spells and traps. Monster effects are outside your control. So, be gone, reactor. TCH. Seeing the situation, Fink snorted coldly. This is why tactics from other dimensions aren't reliable. Hikaru cleared the entire setup with just one card. Entering the battle phase. TCH, in the end you still have to rely on your own strategy, trap card, massive morph, activate. Just as Chimeraplegia was about to attack directly, its body suddenly swelled, lines twisting and bulging until it became thick and unwieldy. Target one monster on the field, its ATK and def become doubled, and it cannot attack directly. Predaplant Chimeraplegia, ATK 2500 5000. Higher than even Blue Eye's Ultimate Dragon now. Seriously? He raised the opponent's monster to 5000 ATK? What is that Earl thinking? Who knows, nobles think differently. Maybe he likes the feeling of being stared down by a giant monster. And indeed, while the effect doubles ATK, it doesn't prevent it from attacking monsters. Some security officers grumbled in annoyance. In this dimension, duelists of different status receive different treatment. Just like in the Fusion Dimensions Duel Academy, ordinary students can't obtain strong cards. Fusion Army originally recruited hundreds of students using only a pre-built ancient gear deck. In the Synchro Dimension, all strong and rare cards are monopolized by upper city nobles. Duelists either use junk cards like UCI or join the nobles to receive better cards. Many of the security police became officers for this exact reason. Set 1 card, turn end. My turn, draw. At this moment, Destiny Hero, Draw Guy's effect activates. When this card is sent to the GY, at the next standby phase, special summon this card. If it leaves the field after being summoned this way, banish it. When this card is special summoned by a hero effect, both players draw 1 card. Oh! Ha ha ha, you're giving me extra cards? How generous. Hikaru remained expressionless as they both drew. Oh, this card is useful. Fink grinned at his draw. I activate the field spell, Earthbound Geoglyph. A purple light emitted from his right hand. A massive geoglyph formed in the sky, reflected onto the ground below. Hikaru looked up briefly. Since this wasn't a writing duel, the geoglyph's glow wasn't very intense. I discard this card from my hand. Fink looked at his hand with a hint of disgust. I discard Steel Swarm Sting. What are you doing? Lilos shouted in shock upon seeing the discard. Steel Swarm Sting. When this card on the field is sent to the GY, you can destroy 1 face-up ritual, fusion, or synchro monster on the field. A key card Fusion Army prepared against synchro monsters, and against Hikaru. But Fink didn't care. After Lilo's earlier strategy failed, he began doubting Fusion Army. After all, the Fusion Army weren't natives of this world, and as a noble, Fink's arrogance made him unwilling to take orders. What I do is none of your concern. Fink snapped. I am the Earl of Delosen, I'm a dark signer, destined to become a god. You don't get to lecture me. He clearly resented how Lilos kept interfering. I activate the spell card 1 for 1. I send 1 monster from my hand to the GY, then I special summon 1 level 1 monster from my hand or deck. 1 for 1, huh? Hikaru nodded slightly. In terms of extending plays, it's indeed excellent. As for the monster I'm special summoning from my deck, Earthbound Prisoner Groundkeeper. A demon bound to a giant hammer, wrapped in chains, struggled onto the field. Earthbound Prisoner Groundkeeper. Level 1, Dark Fiend, ATK 300. When this card is normal or special summoned, you can special summon 1 level 5 or lower Earthbound monster from your deck, except Earthbound Prisoner Groundkeeper. I special summon Earthbound Prisoner Stonesweeper. A whale-like creature, its body wrapped in heavy chains, slid across the field with a low, mournful cry. Earthbound Prisoner Stonesweeper, Level 5, Dark Fiend, ATK 1600. Seeing these familiar monsters, Hikaru could feel the soul within his deck trembling. It was Geo Kraken. So it really was the one connected to the Sea Earthbound god. Using Level 1 Earthbound Prisoner Groundkeeper and Level 5 Earthbound Prisoner Stonesweeper, I synchro summon Level 6 Tuner Monster, Coral Dragon. A dragon leapt from the ocean's surface, glaring at Hikaru's back. Coral Dragon Level 6, Water, Dragon, ATK 2400. A Synchro Tuner? What? A Synchro Tuner? That's an ultra-rare card. The security officers were trembling with excitement. Just 1 Synchro Tuner like Coral Dragon was worth decades of their salary, something they could never obtain normally, and the nobles summoned it casually. Effect of Earthbound Geoglyph. When a Synchro monster is special summoned, I add 1 Earthbound Immortal spell/trap from my deck to my hand. I choose Roar of the Earthbound Immortal. And thanks to Earthbound Geoglyph, when tribute summoning an Earthbound Immortal, a Synchro monster counts as 2 tributes. I tribute Coral Dragon, to tribute summon, Earthbound Immortal Chatsu Chalua. Voom! His right hand glowed purple, and the geoglyph in the sky rippled like water. A gigantic winged orca emerged from the void, swimming through the air as if through an ocean. What is that? The security forces panicked. The colossal orca shadowed the entire sky. Human souls poured into its mouth like a purple tide, and with a single bite, they vanished. Chaozu Chalyua. In the original story, this earthbound immortal chose Gregor, manipulated by the dark signer Godwin. But here, clearly it was the nobles of the Synchro Dimension who wiped out Gregor's homeland. Earthbound immortal Chaozu Chalyua level 10, Dark, Fish, ATK 2900. This one has absorbed quite a few souls. Ha! Parasites feeding off society, they don't deserve to be called human anyway. If they can contribute to building the future, that's an honor, isn't it? Fink shrugged. Besides, I'm destined to become one of the divine. These creatures aren't even the same species as me. Surely you agree? Hikaru said nothing. Is that so? Effect of Coral Dragon. When the Synchro Summon monster is sent to the GY, I draw one card. He looked at the drawn card. Good, very good. Earthbound immortal Chaozu Chalyua can attack directly. The giant orca swam through the air and opened its jaws. Purple waves fell from the sky as panic spread through the watching officers. Because the officers realized something terrifying, when those waves hit the ground, they instantly corroded the pavement, and even several D-wheels that were caught in the spray were completely destroyed in seconds. Hikaru LP, 3100-200. Hikaru's clothes were shredded open, his mind went dizzy, and he staggered. He nearly fell face-first into the ground, catching himself with one hand, barely staying upright. Ha 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 ha. So this is the power of a god. Too strong. Absolutely incredible. Fink laughed madly. Lilos exhaled slowly. Seeing Hikaru lose that much LP and almost collapse, he finally felt relieved. Although it was unexpected, Fink had dealt massive damage, meaning Lilos could now trust him again. Even though he objected to Fink abandoning the earlier anti-fusion strategy, damage like this meant his instincts were probably right. Fink still has Fusion Doom on the field. If Hikaru activates a fusion spell, Fusion Doom will negate it, destroy it, and instantly deal 300 damage, which means Hikaru would die immediately with only 200 LP left. And Lilos looked upward at the massive earthbound immortal roaming the sky. Earthbound immortals are unaffected by spells/traps. They also cannot be selected as attack targets. Meaning, the earthbound immortal can attack freely, and Hikaru has no way to respond. Not only that, it's level 10. Predaplant Chimera Flesia's effect can't touch something of this level. This was wonderful. Could he really get to watch Hikaru lose right in front of him? He was trembling with excitement. Just to be safe. Fink looked at the card in his hand and grinned. I activate the spell card Earthquake. All face-up monsters on the field change to defense position. The colossal orca folded its fins, its posture turning more cautious. Earthbound immortal Chaozu Chalyua ATK Def, 2400. While Chaozu Chalyua remains in face-up defense position, my opponent cannot conduct a battle phase. Not only that, once per turn, if it did not battle this turn, it inflicts damage to my opponent equal to half its DF. I'm going to win. My turn. Hikaru pressed a hand to his head, shaking it to clear his dizziness. He forced himself upright and drew. He glanced at the card inside instinctively. You know. I've always wondered why my opponents, especially people like you two, keep losing over and over again. What? Both Fink and Lilos shouted at the same time. But now I understand. It's because my friends and teachers can genuinely trust each other and work together. But you, even when you make a plan, even when you pretend to cooperate, you can't stop doubting each other. Let me show you exactly what mistake you made. Destroying a fusion spell is not the same as preventing fusion. Normal summon, Earthbound Prisoner Groundkeeper. What? The security officers gasped. Why did Hikaru have the same Earthbound servant cards as Fink? Lilos felt his scalp tighten. Oh, that's right. Earlier when monitoring Hikaru's deck today, I did see something like that, but I didn't understand what the servant cards did, and Fink didn't explain anything. Geo Gremlins effect, I special summon from my deck, Earthbound Prisoner Stonesweeper. The two servants of an earthbound immortal writhed in torment. Their cries resembled the souls imprisoned inside Chatsu Chalua. Are you trying to synchro summon Mudragon of the swamp? Lilos shouted. But no, even if you fusion summon Starving Venom Fusion Dragon using two dark monsters, and copy the Earthbound Immortals effect, because Chatsu Chalua is in defense position, you can't conduct a battle phase anyway. You're finished. You think I'll lose, before I've even fusion summoned? Hikaru's eyes half closed. Where is your so-called trust in fusion? Where is your belief in possibility? General of the Fusion Army? Activate the trap card, Dark Lord Uprising. I discard Dark Lord Zerato from my hand and activate Rebellion's effect, send monsters from my hand or field to the GY to perform a Dark Fusion summon. W what? Lilos finally understood. That card was? Yes. The one you fear the most, the card Professor Growler gave me. I fused the two earthbound servants on my field. O ancient soul, imprisoned beneath the ocean. At this moment, rebel against the source of all sin. Fusion summon. Level 8 Earthbound Servant Geokraken. Boom. Boom boom boom. From the sea, countless tentacles rose upward. A smaller geoglyph, similar to the whales but low and submissive, glowed between sea and sky. A giant chained octopus rose slowly from beneath the waves, trembling like a slave, standing behind Hikaru. Boom! The seawater surged violently, washing over the sand and scaring the officers so badly they clung to each other. Earthbound Servant Geokraken, Level 8 Dark/Fiend ATK 2800. Because of Dark Lord Uprising's effect, Hikaru also recovers LP equal to the ATK of the discarded Dark Lord. Hikaru LP, 203,000. Che. Just a servant? Fink looked tense for a moment, then relaxed when he read the name. It was only a slave of the Earthbound Immortals, nothing special. Just like the lower city peasants, disposable. Yes, Geokraken might not be stronger than your Earthbound Immortal, but a servant has its own speciality. Effective Earthbound Servant Geokraken, when this card is special summoned, add one field spell from your deck or GY to your hand. This effect existed solely to assist the Earthbound Immortals. Fink wasn't concerned. I add Earthbound Prison from my deck to my hand. Hikaru's deck automatically shuffled. A trembling card, full of cracks, lifted itself out of the deck and into his hand. In Hikaru's deck, cards unrelated to fusion tended to be reforged by his fusion power, turned into other cards. But these days, Hikaru could control his fusion power, so he could safely include cards that weren't strictly fusion tools. But this time, he chose not to suppress the fusion force within him. You still haven't noticed your problem? Earthbound Immortal effects only function when a face-up field spell is on the field. Fink finally realized. I set Earthbound Prison in the field zone. Hikaru casually inserted the card face down without flipping it face up. Instantly, the unstable geoglyph in the sky flickered and dissolved. The soaring Earthbound Immortal began losing energy, its body weakening as though life were slipping out of it. Damn it! Lilos roared. Under modern duel rules, only one field spell can exist at a time, so setting a new one replaces the old one. Now, Hikaru could simply switch Clemento Sundu and Dragai to attack position, destroy the Earthbound Immortal with Chimeraplegia, and then attack directly with Geokraken plus Dragai. With the Immortal gone, Earthbound cannot activate. Fink loses instantly. TCH. If Fink hadn't discarded Steel Swarm Sting, and if he'd followed Lilo's original plan, destroying Predaplin Chimeraplegia early, then even if Hikaru searched a fusion spell, Fusion Doom was still active, so Hikaru couldn't use it anyway. And then, Geokraken's 2800 ATK could never beat the Earthbound Immortal. Because if the Immortal used Roar of the Earthbound Immortal, any monster that attacked with lower ATK would be destroyed instantly. If Fink had just stalled, or drawn another field spell, he would have won. Fink realized too late, and waved frantically. W8. This duel doesn't count. It wasn't a writing duel. At this point, you're still saying that? Hikaru raised his hand and pointed at him. Switch Chimeraplegia and Dragai to attack position. Chimeraplegia, attack Earthbound Immortal Chatsu Chalua. The 5000 ATK Chimeraplegia lunged. With no field spell, the immortal lost its protection and power, and was dragged down violently in front of its former servant. Geo-Kraken's shackles cracked open. Souls trapped in Chatsu Chalua burst outward like a storm. Dragai, fire. Dragai flickered, then fired a shot straight at Fink's legs, dropping him hard on the sand. Fink LP, 2400. And finally, Geo-Kraken, the choice is yours. Hikaru looked at the trembling octopus. For a long moment, the sea monster didn't move. Only when Fink tried to climb into his car and run. Splat! Geo-Kraken fired thick black ink, blinding him. Then, like a falling tower, a massive tentacle came crashing down. A herf! Unlike Hikaru, who tanked a full-power Earthbound Immortal strike, Fink was weak, pampered, and soft. The moment an Earthbound servant hit him, he screamed pathetically. He collapsed against his car, shaking, then shouted at the officers. What are you waiting for? Arrest him! But, my lord, you promised. Promised what? I never, Suddenly, Fink felt weightless. His whole body throbbed in pain. Above him, the purple whale materialized again, rising from the void like a surfacing submarine, and swallowed him whole. Then the colossal whale crashed toward the ground. The security officers panicked, convinced they would be crushed. But their fear was pointless. As it landed, the Earthbound Immortal's body shrank, dissolved into purple light, and finally turned into a single card. Hikaru casually reached out and caught it. A card bearing the name Earthbound Immortal Chatsu Chalua, its glow fading slowly in his hand. Chapter 488, The Tanker. The duel ended, and Fink became food for the Earthbound Immortal, swallowed whole. Hikaru lifted his head and looked toward the security officers, then locked eyes with Lilos. He raised his left hand. Come down. Lilos clenched his fist so hard his knuckles cracked. Being provoked, especially by Hikaru, a duelist who openly opposed their entire fusion army, was already beyond what anyone could tolerate. And on top of that, Leo Akiba had personally told him before leaving. If that noble fool fails to defeat Hikaru, then you handle it yourself. He almost pulled his deck from his uniform, but halfway out, he forced himself to stop and slowly put the cards back. Right now, dueling Hikaru head-on would be suicide. Even after all his research, even after crafting anti-fusion tactics specifically to beat Hikaru, Fink still lost. Sure, part of that was Fink's arrogance, but even if Fink had followed Lilo's exact strategy to the letter, would he really have won? After all, Hikaru had just proven something terrifying. Even without using fusion spells, he can still fusion summon and keep fighting. Hikaru wasn't mocking their fusion army for style, he was stating a painful truth. They weren't fusing at all. Lilo's fist trembled. His teeth ground together. But he still couldn't move. Everything he had prepared was now completely meaningless. Hikaru. I understand, Hikaru said calmly. If you're so desperate to prove that your fusion is the correct path, then next time, I'll defeat you using my own true fusion. With that, Lilos leapt back up toward the cliff above. Poof. Hikaru snorted in boredom. Compared to beating some random aristocrat from Sector S, the fusion army was far more motivating. Besides, Hikaru looked down at the Earthbound Immortal card in his hand. There was a feeling coming from it. Apathy. The Earthbound Immortal should have been overflowing with violent, corruptive power, enough to drag out the madness in any human heart. But Chatsu Chalua was utterly silent. Hikaru probed it with his own power. No resistance. No malice. No domination. Just resignation. A complete, utter refusal to care. Hikaru began to understand. This world was not the original 5D's world. Here in the Synchro dimension, the One God war had repeated countless times. Sometimes different gods won. Sometimes the only god changed hands. But either way, even among earthbound immortals, there were those who had grown exhausted by the endless cycle. Chatsu Chalua might be one of them. After all, even if the original didn't choose Gregor here, no true god of its rank would ever choose a vessel like Fink, a man with no duelist spirit, no courage, no resolve. It made no sense. The good news was that this thing was also classified as a earthbound monster. That meant it could be used as fusion material for earthbound servant Geokraken, so Hikaru didn't need to worry about this card being overwritten or erased by his fusion power. And with that settled. Even though Chatsu Chalua itself had shown no will or vitality, its power was undeniably real. It could greatly supplement Hikaru's dueling aura and spirit power. Hikaru's own spiritual force was already extremely high. With Tiara's blessing, he was near the upper limit a human could reach. But if it could grow even stronger, who would ever turn that down? And that wasn't all. After the duel finally ended, the silhouette of Geokraken also loosened completely, the chains and bindings that wrapped its body fell away, and it too turned into a card that drifted into Hikaru's hand. Harmonic Synchro Fusion. The anime version of the card. You had to understand, the biggest difference between the anime version and the printed OCG/TCG version was that the printed version only performs a special summon, which counts as neither a fusion summon nor a synchro summon. Meaning, Hikaru's downgraded version could not fuse fusion dragons, and it couldn't summon Dragon Necro Nethersal Dragon either. How was that supposed to be synchro fusion? He couldn't even summon an S-Dimension dual dragon with it. But the anime version was completely different, it counted as both a fusion summon and a synchro summon. It was immeasurably stronger than the downgraded one. Most importantly, its card name was different from the one Hikaru previously obtained from the Skull Knight. Because the downgraded version of that card had the full name Ghost Fusion, Ghostly Fusion, Hikaru could never search it with a custom-made Ghost Wyvern, and Skull Knight's gift was stuck being unsearchable. But this card, Harmonic Synchro Fusion, was the exact same name as the OCG downgraded version. Which meant, it could be searched directly, by Earthbound Servant Linewalker's effect. Ecstatic, Hikaru immediately slid the card into his deck. Then he looked back at the roadway and turned to the security officers. So? Are you still planning to arrest me? The officers glanced at each other, and eventually, all of them turned to Tetsu. Tetsu looked extremely awkward. He scratched the back of his head and sighed. Come on, you little punks, only remember I'm your captain at times like this, huh? He turned toward Hikaru. Well, what can I say, Hikaru? We're security officers, we can't disobey orders from nobles. Since Baron Fink said you could go if you won, then you can go. We won't stop you. Ha! Hikaru let out two short laughs. He pushed his D-wheel forward, rolled back onto the racetrack, and put his helmet on once again. Before I go, officer. I don't know exactly how things work in your dimension, but if a noble dies while under your protection, those nobles will definitely blame you, won't they? Tetsu's expression froze with embarrassment. That man just now, Lilos, his backing organization is called the Fusion Military. They're a terrorist group in our dimension, bent on conquering every dimension. What? Tetsu's embarrassment instantly vanished, replaced by shock. A piece of good news is, I happen to have the footage of their invasion of X Dimension. Ha, that brat Chez really prepared well. Hikaru muttered the last line under his breath, then pressed a button on his D-wheel, sending the footage to the nearby patrol car. Here, take it. With this, you should be able to report back to your superiors. When it involves dimensional invasion, this should make quite a useful bargaining chip, right? Hikaru wasn't sure how the security bureau worked in this dimension. But he did know one thing, if Godwin could smack the nobles once, he could smack them a second, a third, and countless more times. Once the transfer finished, Hikaru looked at Tetsu from behind his visor. Officer Tetsu, these past few days. You've probably seen a bit of this world's actual truth, and what some nobles really think, haven't you? I hope, when the time comes, you make the right choice. The right choice? Tetsuo looked completely lost. Hikaru chuckled. Usually other people were the ones playing riddles with him. Today he finally got to be the one acting mysterious. But since it would all erupt within a few days anyway, there was no need to explain. He twisted the throttle and left his final message. Well then, farewell. His D-wheel automatically accelerated, racing off the way he came. Tetsuo watched Hikaru's silhouette disappear, then glanced at his men, all gathered around the patrol car, watching the footage. And he remembered what the Nobel said earlier. A bunch of parasites wasting society's resources, they barely count as human. Letting them become fodder for a better future is already a blessing for them. To obtain power, sacrificing human beings directly to monsters. How had his world become like this? Chapter 489, Base Camp. Hikaru returned to the hideout. He rushed inside with visible excitement, immediately pulling out every piece of machinery he could find, and began fully focused on modifying the Emerald Codex. Previously, when he first arrived in this dimension, Hikaru didn't think much of it. His plan was simple. Casually locate the Earthbound servants, help Muddy Dragon solve its issue, then hang around with Red Dragon Archfiend and the Signers, watch the Dark Signer incidents like a tourist, enjoy the duels of this world, and collect a few Synchro-Fusion-related cards along the way. But now, Ater learning that not only had the Fusion military arrived in this dimension, but Akaba Leo himself had shown up. Everything was completely different. Before, he could take his time. Traveling, experimenting a bit, crafting cards, enjoying his summer break. It was half research, half vacation, no pressure. But Akaba Leo being here? That was the perfect opportunity. Hikaru couldn't tell if he was excited, or if the power of an Earthbound immortal was boosting him, but all his research suddenly progressed shockingly well. Good, if he could build a macrocosmos workshop here too, victory chances would skyrocket. Meanwhile, after socializing with the nobles for a while, Akaba Leo finally listened to Lilos's report. Upon hearing that Hikaru had obtained an Earthbound Immortal card, Leo's expression didn't change at all. He simply scolded Lilos in front of the nobles, then raised him high and set him down lightly. He told him not to take it personally, just prepare for the next ambush. At a general's level, even Leo wouldn't punish someone lightly, their individual competence was too high. Someone like Lilos wouldn't be disciplined just to appease nobles. Besides, what Leo cared about didn't lie there at all. He looked toward the massive machines his soldiers had transported into this dimension's aristocratic district. Then he gently took out his deck. Having already secured the power of the sacred beasts, the numbers, and the Earthbound immortals, he could finally attempt it. Back then, he and his comrades conducted experiments with the God cards. Using solid vision compression, they attempted to condense infinite mass into a single card, thus creating a God card capable of building a world where everyone could live freely, a world with unlimited resources, no scarcity, no suffering. At that moment, the instant the card manifested, Leo understood. They had not created that card. Rather, that card had finally found a vessel suitable for itself. In that moment, Leo was given a choice. A pendulum swing of the soul. A choice between two futures. To walk the path of selflessness, share that power, reshape the world, let all people live happy lives. Or to walk the path of selfishness, take the power for himself alone, and create a world where only he enjoyed all existence. In that flicker of his soul, Akaba Leo chose the latter. Unfortunately, due to unforeseen events, the experiment failed. Zark and Ray, who were meant to contain the power, split apart, leaving Leo with nothing. But although he failed then, he still had a chance. If he could gather his daughter again, the world would be his. Not only that, even though he didn't obtain the full power of God, the resonance of that experiment left him with a sliver of possibility. He had already taken data from Serena through cultivation and experimentation. Not long ago, when Yuri captured Ruri in the XYZ dimension, Leo extracted the data from her as well. Now, with the sacred beasts plus numbers plus Earthbound immortal energies, He could unlock that possibility. Click. Click. Like a pendulum swinging, Leo's eyes pulsed with that possibility. A card floated before his vision. He exhaled. A fusion monster. A fusion monster that ordinary people would never even see, an overwhelmingly powerful one. But unlike normal fusion monsters, the upper half of the card was the usual purple of a fusion monster, yet the lower half was green, the color of a spell card. Not only that, but its appearance was unlike any other card. Between the effect text and the artwork, there was even an extra card zone strip. With this card, it didn't matter whether the opponent used sacred beasts or number cards, they would all be powerless and insignificant before it. But just as Akaba Leo's confidence peaked, the machine that maintained the card's physical manifestation flickered, a distorted pulse. Leo's brows tightened. It seemed the data of only 2 girls was still not enough. This world should have one as well, shouldn't it? My daughter. Meanwhile, in the fusion dimension, his beloved daughter Serena followed the school delegation and Jaden to the Red Dorm's transit platform. Recently, Misawa had left as the chosen representative to the XYZ dimension, and Chaz was busy every day running his company, so the fusion department felt unusually empty. Now, the timing was finally right. As a first-year standout, Serena naturally had the opportunity to join this month's interdimensional trip. As Jaden walked beside her, he casually asked whether she wanted him to accompany her. Serena knew perfectly well, Jaden-senpai wasn't asking because he wanted an opportunity, he simply had too much time on his hands. But, today, she wanted to try something different. She didn't want Jaden tagging along. So before they even reached the transfer platform, she firmly insisted that Jaden go do something else. She had plenty of experience, he didn't need to worry. Jaden actually wanted to protect Serena, but since she insisted so earnestly, he couldn't follow her around as a man. Too bad Alexis isn't here, he muttered. Alexis had gone on a trip with Atticus to Domino City. Jaden honestly wanted to go too, maybe visit Yugi Muta's shop, but he'd missed the chance. As the dimensional machine activated, Serena subtly raised her left hand. The gate's light rotated slowly, and then, it shifted to green. If Jaden had been there, he'd have dragged her away instantly. After all, Jaden had personally experienced Banner Sensei tampering with gate destinations with alchemy, sending travelers to entirely different worlds. But when a straightforward person tries scheming for the first time, others tend to let their guard down. Serena didn't know how to construct a dimensional gate, but she had researched how to alter its destination. Moments later, she landed in a wide, empty research facility. Her reflexes kicked in, she immediately rolled into a dark corner, hiding her presence. A familiar scent lingered in the air. As expected, the tension in her chest froze and died. The dimension where Ruri was imprisoned was indeed the Fusion Military Headquarters. Chapter 490, Morning. Time, 7 a.m. the next morning. Using her deep familiarity with the base, Serena slipped past the minimal patrols with ease and quietly made her way back to her assigned room. The moment she got inside, she quickly gathered all her spare cards that she'd left behind, changed into a fusion military uniform, and, following the plan she and Ruri had prepared, packed an extra uniform as backup. Only after putting on a cap to hide her face did she step back out into the hallway. After all, she had spent most of her life being trained inside the fusion military. No matter how twisted the place was, she still remembered every password, every clearance code, every routine. She had worked so hard, too hard, because she wanted to prove her worth, to make her father proud, to earn even a single genuine smile from Akaba Leo. But ever since meeting people outside this world, ever since seeing what the world was really like, she finally understood. That love, that family, that purpose she devoted herself to, was never real. And because she managed to escape, she refused to let her sisters suffer the same fate she did. Step by step, Serena made her way to the laboratory sector. There, she saw them, for cylindrical stasis pods. Like 4 pillars. If it had been the old Serena, she might have looked at them without thinking anything unusual. Now, The truth hit her instantly. He's going to imprison all four of us. Fury rose in her chest. She rushed up and tapped on one of the pods. Ruri, it's me. Inside the stasis chamber, Ruri's eyes, previously motionless, trembled. Slowly, painfully, they opened. Serena. I overheard some things these past few days. That switch right there can release you. Got it. Serena immediately deactivated the life support lock and opened the pod. Ruri's body spasmed at the sudden exposure, and she toppled forward. Serena tried to catch her, but instead Ruri collapsed right on top of her, both of them falling to the ground. At least they didn't make much noise. Ruri gritted her teeth, using the machinery beside her to brace herself as she stood. Her body was weak, far too weak. Even with the machines maintaining her life, she'd been left immobile for too long. And then... WEOO. The alarms flashed crimson. What happened? Did a priority containment unit fail? Voices and rushed footsteps echoed from the corridors. Serena tried to lift Ruri, activating her strong Serena muscle training instinct, and prepared to run, but Ruri grabbed her wrist. Wait. Ruri staggered to another pod, opened its lower drawer, and retrieved her deck, along with several other cards stored nearby. She couldn't escape without it. After grabbing everything, she pulled Serena toward a large equipment locker. The two squeezed inside, closing the door behind them. Heavy footsteps thundered closer. Ruri clamped a hand over Serena's mouth to keep her quiet. It's Ruri. Ruri escaped. How? She shouldn't even be conscious. The remaining guards panicked. Notify Yuri. Notify Yuri? Who's going to? Are you crazy? If Yuri finds out we screwed up, he'll kill us. Then hurry up and catch her before he notices. No one dared question it. The soldiers scattered, some to search, others to check surveillance. Once most of them were gone, Serena exploded out of the locker, kicked one soldier straight to the ground, and hurled two small chemical vials that burst into thick smoke. You're so smart, Ruri. Let's just run for now. Ruri blushed, embarrassed at being praised. The only reason Serena dared to infiltrate the fusion military alone was because she wasn't reckless at all. In truth, Serena and Ruri had been planning this for days. Ruri had been quietly observing the situation in this dimension and sharing her thoughts with Serena whenever she had the chance. A few days earlier, she noticed that most of the soldiers had been dispatched to other dimensions. To her, that meant only one thing. A perfect opportunity. So she pieced together a workable escape plan. She stole the helmet from one of the guards stationed here, disguised herself, and slipped into Serena's spare fusion military uniform. Ruri and Serena didn't just look identical, their body types matched perfectly too, so the uniform fit without issue. After all the preparations were complete, the two began their escape. Serena carried the device she had prepared to reroute a dimensional gateway's destination. As long as they reached the teleportation room successfully, everything would be fine. And at first, everything went well. Serena was a little reckless, yes, but thanks to Ruri's carefully crafted plan, nothing spiraled out of control, and the two reached the fusion military transfer sector smoothly. But luck never lasts forever. 9:15 a.m. Serena and Ruri entered the second checkpoint area only to find a crowd of soldiers blocking the path. This was the only place from which one could leave the dimension, so a group of soldiers was stationed to restrict unauthorized usage of the dimensional gates. Another group was trying to use the gateway to transfer elsewhere, so the two sides were loudly arguing. From the argument alone, Serena and Ruri could confirm. The fusion military's main forces truly weren't here. But, just as they thought they could slip through unnoticed, one soldier turned his head, caught sight of Serena, froze for a second, and spoke. Miss Serena? Serena's eyes went wide. An instructor. It was the instructor who had once trained her in dueling techniques, someone who remembered her very clearly. The surrounding soldiers all reacted instantly to the name. Miss Serena? The professor's daughter? She actually came back to the Fusion military today? But then they realized. Why are there two of her? Before they could process anything, Serena moved faster than her brain could think. She launched a kick straight into a nearby soldier. At the same time, Ruri decisively slid a card into her dual disk. A roaring gust of wind burst out, kicking up a violent breeze that blinded every soldier nearby. Even so, they instinctively rushed to stop the intruders. But Serena had already slammed her hand onto the dimensional gate controls. It didn't matter where the gate was originally aimed, as long as she adjusted the final coordinates, everything would be fine. The thought alone filled her chest with adrenaline. After all this time, she could finally perform a heroic rescue all on her own, without needing her teacher or her seniors to bail her out. A brilliant flash burst out, and the dimensional gate's color shifted into green. Just one more moment, and they would return to Duel Academy. Ruri finally let out a breath of relief. It looked like she really could escape this place with Serena using her own strength. But in that tiny sliver of time when both girls were relaxed, a purple glow suddenly pulsed. Along with several soldiers' screams, the dimensional gate's color twisted again. Serena's eyes went wide, and then her whole body dropped downward as gravity vanished beneath her. When she looked up, what appeared before her was a spiraling city twisting upwards into the sky. Meanwhile, back in the Fusion military main base, Yuri walked forward with his usual unsettling smile. The moment the soldiers saw him, they instantly bowed in terror. Even the instructor couldn't help lowering his head. Several Duel Monsters cards drifted down from above, each card printed with the terror-stricken faces of Fusion military soldiers, the final expressions they ever made in their lives. Yuri crouched down casually and picked the cards up with one hand. "Forgive us, Representative Yuri, we weren't able to." The soldier assigned to watch the experimental sector tried to explain himself, hoping desperately that he could make his actions sound reasonable. After all, from the looks of it, the dimensional gate had probably sent both girls toward S dimension. Maybe that could be counted as making up for their failure. If so, then. He never finished the thought. Yuri had already pressed a button on his dual disk. In a chorus of screams, the soldiers instantly turned into cards and scattered across the floor. Then Yuri looked toward the instructor. "Representative Yuri, what should we do next?" the instructor asked hesitantly. Miss Ruri was taken by Miss Serena. "Shall I pursue?" "The professor told me to stay here and guard." Yuri replied with a pleasant smile, but the utter indifference in his tone made his lack of interest painfully obvious. "As for what happens here, you can be the one to explain it to the professor." Being left behind to stand watch instead of going out to duel left him completely unmotivated. Fanning himself with the soldier cards, as if they were playing cards, Yuri turned around and walked off, not caring in the slightest about anything that had just happened. That wraps up this part of What If Fusion Deck User in a Different Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. Thanks so much for listening. As always, new parts drop every 4 days, so be sure to stay tuned. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and please consider supporting the original author as well. See you in the next one.